Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. I'm at my parents' farm and we are about to embark on another series called the Great Farm Cleanup series. Many of you who have been with my channel for a while will hopefully have thoroughly enjoyed the Great Backyard Cleanup series that I did at my shop. And that all happened and it went well and I've recovered mostly. But now I'm at my parents' farm. They have sold off a lot of the land. Well, they've actually just sold the main block. My parents are in their 80s. In fact, Dad's just had his 84th birthday just yesterday. But Dad's got some pretty serious health issues and they're looking to move. Well, I don't think they're looking to move. They'd like to stay here as long as they can. However, we have to clean the farm up because the neighbours bought the property. Now, the neighbour and my family have always been great, going back generations, been good friends. It's really nice that it's worked out this way, and Mum and Dad actually get to stay in the farmhouse for as long as they can, which is pretty good. However, we have to clean up, and I thought I may as well do a big YouTube series on dealing with all the stuff, on getting rid of the farm machinery. There'll be scrap metal, there'll be treasures in sheds, there'll be unboxings. A lot of the stuff I'll probably take back to my shop and sell. Some of it will be going to the scrap metal yard that we'll probably just have to call the truck in. We won't have time to do trips to Melbourne or anything. The farm's about 4 hours from Melbourne, so that's not really practical. Anyway, I'll have you a bit of a walk around. I'll show you what some of the stuff I'm going to do today. I'm here for a couple of days. I'll have to come back fairly regularly, so we'll keep the updates happening. Let's have a look at the first things I'm going to deal with. Okay, out in this front paddock, we've got a lot of the area mown, and we've moved a lot of the old machinery out here. And when I say we, Ross, the neighbour who now owns the property, has done it. So it gives us a chance to deal with it. And he's going to put sheep in here, so they should keep the grass down. So we've got a lot of stuff here that I'm going to take photos of and try and sell on eBay. Now, don't know how it's going to go. Dad doesn't have a lot of good machinery left and a lot of quantity and quality stuff for a farm clearing sale, for an auction. Now the silos you can see over there stay with the property. There are some things that will stay here, but really all this old machinery we have to get rid of. So I was going to try eBay. We'll see how we go. There's an old spray tank unit there. I think that's probably just a homemade trailer. Dad's been a marvel at keeping old machinery going for many, many years, but it does mean that there's not a lot of commercial value in it. So that New Holland square hay baler is in operational condition, and there's another one much the same here just for parts. If we don't have any success selling them on eBay, they probably will go for scrap. But the problem with that is that by the time the scrapyard sends a truck out, and they probably have to cut them up to get them within a legal width to take back on the road, they're probably not going to offer us very much for them. And when you look at this great big harrow bar here, it's a folding harrow bar because it was a lot of broadacre cropping around this area. Quite an old machine, and to cut that up for scrap is a lot of work for not really that much weight. But hopefully a local farmer might have use for it, and if we get $500 for it on eBay, well, we're going to be well ahead. It has got a good hydraulic ram on it, so if it does go for scrap, we'll probably take the ram off it because that will sell separately. We have an old hay rake here. In fact, there's two of them. Again, there's one just for parts. So I'm going to take a lot of photos of these things shortly, and I'll probably list them all on eBay, probably all at once, and then allow for myself to be back here for people to pick up. Here we have a hay bale elevator for building a haystack, and it doesn't have a motor on it anymore by the looks of it, but it's a local farmer may have a use for that, although not many farmers do the small square bales anymore. This slasher should be worth a little bit, so I think that's in operational condition as well. And next to it we have a little hay, again a square bale loader for when you're loading them on a truck running around the paddock. So again, a very old machine. It's been in the weather a long time. It's possibly only scrap metal, that one, but I think we'll give them a go on eBay and see what happens. This is an old mower, what they call a finger mower, and it drives off the tractor. It's what they call a PTO drive. Looks like the tyres are pretty average, so it hasn't been used for a long time. They're called a finger mower or a sickle mower because they've got these fingers and then the blade oscillates back and forward. So that one's probably repairable, but whether anyone would use it, I don't know. This cultivator is, I think it's a springtime, or we've always known it as an Aki bar because it was made by a local firm called Acklands, but it's basically just a folding wing cultivator, fairly wide one. Well, certainly for my time involved in farming, it's a fairly wide one. Farming these days, the equipment's getting absolutely massive, so your big farmers wouldn't be interested in this, but the smaller hobby farmers perhaps. So we'll see how that goes. And this one's an old Scarifier, which is basically a type of plough. It's had a long hard life, and I was just looking at this before with Dad and made a few little repair jobs, but have a look at the wear in the pins. So you can see that it's been used to within an inch of its life. I believe you can rebush them, but even the pin up the top here, it's just about chopped it in half. So it's had a lot of work. That one may end up going for scrap metal because it would weigh quite a bit, and again there's a hydraulic ram on it. So a lot of stuff to deal with. I've decided to deal with the larger furniture, larger machinery kind of first. We won't have to worry about getting to the sheds for quite some time. Hopefully Mum and Dad have still got a bit of time on the farm. And the deal with the neighbour is that once they leave the farm, whether it to be into aged care or whether they get a unit somewhere or whether they go downhill quickly and don't last for long, I don't know what's going to happen there, but when that time comes and they move, we still have 12 months to clean up the actual farm side, all the sheds and everything. So it's good that I'm not under as much pressure as I found myself cleaning up my shop. But what we do need to do is get rid of some of this larger stuff because Ross obviously wants to use the paddocks now that he owns the land, and he doesn't want too much clutter around, which is perfectly understandable. Let's have a look down this other row. Okay, we have some smaller implements here. These are 3-point linkage little scoop. I think this one was part of a post hole digger. Probably not much value in those. Here's a homemade cattle feeder. A 3-point linkage slasher, however, it's got some serious rust problems, so I suggest that one probably will just go for scrap metal. Maybe the PDO shaft might be worth saving off it. A little harrow bar here. I may even take the wheels off that one because I'd probably get $50 per wheel at the shop. And just the other side, that's a permanent water trough, that bath there. And the water tanks all stay with the property as well. And we have this auger. There's another auger somewhere too. So that's a PDO drive one. Quite a long one for obviously getting grain up into the silos. Of course, it may not be obvious to you guys that haven't been on a farm, but that's a grain auger. So there should be good resale value in that one. We have some old 3-point linkage implements here. This one looks like a deep ripper, and the tyre on it isn't actually a wheel, it's just for weight, because these are mount on the back of a tractor, hence the 3-point linkage term. This might be handy for a hobby farmer that has a little Fergie tractor, just a 3-point linkage little plough, I guess you call it, or a cultivator. And a larger deep ripper, probably more like a channel cleaner, I guess. So I think Dad's made this up, or someone's made this up, for cleaning out irrigation channels. So we might have a bit of a walk around the farm, just to show you what else is around the yards. Okay, let's have a look down the other part of the farmyard, around behind the house and down this old lane. We've got a lot of wood here, but if Mum and Dad are staying, they've got a wood stove in the kitchen, so that's going to obviously need to be fueled. So wood is still important. There's an old grister, a grain crusher there, mounted on a couple of axles. We'll probably sell that. Some of this stuff will go right on eBay, some won't. We'll probably have to put some on Facebook Marketplace. And some of it might, as I said earlier, just go for scrap metal. Very good saw bench there, but of course that's still going to be required for cutting up firewood. So I'll cut up some when I'm over here at various times. Dad's still quite capable of doing that at the moment. We need the tractor though to hook up because it's driven from a flat belt from the tractor. There's a cattle feeder that Dad made once. In fact, I think he went to the field days and saw the cattle feeders much like this for sale, and he made a few notes and then come home and made his own. So it worked quite well, but we don't have cattle here anymore. And there's no sheep here either, other than the new sheep from Ross. There's another water trough bath there. Oh, this gate. This is a HV Mckay gate made in Sunshine in Melbourne. Quite collectible. This one's a bit bent, but it's still very saleable. That's probably, well, I reckon that'd be a $200 or $300 gate just sitting there. There are a couple of others over in the other part of the yard that are rather damaged. They tend to rust out in the bottom rail, but they're still quite saleable. And it should say, it's a bit hard to read, but it will say HV Mckay on the cross pieces there. So yep, we'll probably put that on eBay. Let's have a look at the machinery graveyard down the end here. The boys have been dragging all the old machinery down here out of the road, but we do have to organise a scrap metal truck and come and take some of it away, whatever we can't sell. So there's an old International Harvester here, or as we call them, a header for harvesting the crops. I think this one was purchased at an auction just simply for parts. You can tell by the tyre it's well beyond being used. It has a special pickup front here, I think, for harvesting field peas, but no one uses these anymore. So unfortunately, this is probably just going to be scrap metal, and you may notice some little buzzy things around the top. There's a beehive in that top hopper, so we'll keep well away from that. This crane was homemade by Dad, and he's used the chassis of an old truck with the hoist. The truck was a hoist model, and he's set up the hoist to lift this big jib, and it worked really well. It would lift about around about a ton. Probably not recommended by safety people. I think these days you would not be allowed to use this. You'd get into a lot of trouble due to industry standards, and not being an engineer, Dad's just pretty handy with a stick welder, and he made it up and it's been working great. Fortunately, no one ever suffered any injuries from it, but it's probably going to be sold as scrap metal, but someone may choose to remodify it into something else. There's a disc plough here, or 3/4 of a disc plough. I don't know what happened to the other gang. So that may just be scrap metal. Although these discs sell quite well, occasionally I get them through the shop, and I can get $10 each for those discs. People use them for all sorts of things. However, I'm not about to take that one apart. It would take a long time to do that. There's the bulk top off one of the trucks that we've actually sold. This is a grain trailer, which you'll notice the front pull of it is offset, and that used to tow behind the tractor whilst towing the header, or the harvester over there, and the grain would auger straight into, well, that one's actually got its own hopper on it, but the earlier harvesters used this as their hopper, and then this used to have a big auger at the back that you could auger out into a silo. There's a stand here. Oops, excuse me, I've got mosquitoes biting me. There's a bagging off stand here, which is probably only scrap metal because it's quite rusty. You can see the hopper's actually rusted through there. There's a very old trailer here, bulk grain trailer, which I noticed just before, and I'm carrying a screwdriver because I want to get this old number plate off. It's an early Victorian enamelled number plate, so that's probably worth more than the trailer. But it's on good wheels, they're still holding air. We'll probably try and sell that. Likewise, this bulk grain carrier, it's the bulk top is actually mounted to the chassis of an old Chevy truck. I'll walk through here, it's a bit muddy here, but you can see the front chassis rails here, and that used to be, I think it was a 1940s Lend-Lease Chevy truck, and Dad's used the rails and the chassis and the suspension and the steering to make it a towable trailer for carting grain. Now this, back in the 70s, bulk grain was this. You were looking at these sort of things here. And then rapidly the old trucks were replaced by semis, and then along came B-doubles, and yeah, it just, the days of carting wheat in something like that behind the tractor are long gone. I'm not sure if it's going to have any value all we can do is try. Moving on to the graveyard. There's lots of remains of old machinery here. I have spent some time getting old wheels off things here to sell through the shop. They're the other, that's another HV Mckay Gate there in the grass. The other one behind it's just a homemade gate. What you're looking at as far as these machinery pieces go are bodies of the old binders, Reaper and Binder. They were a HV Mckay Sunshine, made in Melbourne. That one over there still has the main wheel under it, which I'd like to try and get out. There is a good one in the shed over back at the farm. I'll show you before we finish up so you have an idea what they look like. But there's quite a lot of them here because Dad used to use these for many, many years to cut wheat stubble into sheaves for the local strawboard factory that made strawboard to go in the ceiling. You may have seen it. It's basically strands of straw packed tightly into a board and woven together with wire. There's a fan off an old windmill. That would look cool on the wall at the shop. Might have to try and get that home sometime. I think it's too good to go for scrap. There's some rails here off some old trailer or truck. Very badly rusted. They're only scrap metal. So yeah, a lot of scrap here. This is the remains of an earlier International header or harvester. There's some old gate frames here. Not much good anymore. Used to use these things in sheep yards and that sort of stuff. That little pipe frame looks like it was an original school desk pipe frame. But I'm not going to restore that one. There's some old harrows. Part of a moldboard plough by the looks of it. Now there's the back chassis of a truck. Lots of scrap here, as you can see. Now I'm not going to cart this off to Melbourne. As I said earlier, it's too far from here. And there's no way known I could handle bigger stuff like this. Even with loading with a tractor here, it's just too much work. I don't have a truck that can take it to Melbourne. And I don't have shoulders good enough to deal with all this. Here's a more complete binder. Again, there's a main drive wheel under there. They were ground driven, so some of them were PDO driven from the tractor, but a lot of them were originally ground driven, which means that as you tow them along, the wheel that it rolls on via a big chain and sprocket setup actually powers the machine. So the platform was out there. It would have had canvases and a big reel on top. As I said, I shall show you one of those before we finish up. And just some general scrap here, water tanks, some more harrows. The front part of another header, that's a Sunshine Massey Ferguson. So lots and lots of stuff here. Looks like the remains of an old combine sower here. More gangs off a cultivator of some sort. Another plough in there. These two wheels I want to try and get. This is the main axle from a very early harvester. And the wheels back at the shop would look magnificent, but I can't possibly take it back complete like this, so we might have to try and cut through the axle somehow. Another binder chassis here, and again that's got the centre wheel underneath it. Bit hard to get out though, I have to try and work on that. They sell quite well. I get about $100, $150 for those wheels, so they're worth trying to get out. International A81 Harvester here. This was the sort that had that bulk bin we looked at earlier, towing beside it, and this little auger out the side here would have filled the bin. So it's had bits cut off it. In fact, I think Steve, my son, might have cut a few panels off out of this one just as signs for his shed. They would have said, I think they just said International, did they? Yeah. So really it's only scrap metal. No one uses headers like this anymore. Another frame here of an early plough. Very solid steel, so they would weigh quite well. And another carcass of a binder here. That one's got a rubber tyre underneath, so I don't want that one. And the only other thing here is another bolt top from a earlier truck we used to have. So that's the end of the machinery graveyard. And you can see around the paddocks here, it's a really lush looking time of the year with all the rain we've had. The row of gum trees down in the distance there is the main road, so that's the front part of the farm. And we'll scan back to the farmhouse over there. You can see the two great big palm trees that are next to the house. It's a very old house and it's being eaten badly by white ants, so I don't think it will stay for a lot longer. I don't think the house is worth fixing up. It's quite possible that Ross's family may end up building another house on this block. It's a nice block, and you can see the crops out there, and it goes all the way down there to the railway line, which is kind of in front of that tree line down there. And the trees you see over that far side are on different land. So yeah, it's I think 326 acres here. I'm not sure what that is in hectares, but it's been the home block for a long, long time. As I said, this is where I grew up, and it's kind of a little sad to finally have it no longer in the family, but we couldn't be happier with Ross buying it, and Mum and Dad are able to stay here for as long as they possibly can, which is good for them. Okay, I think this might do with this video. It's really just a walk around explaining what's going to happen. There will no doubt be future parts on dealing with all this. We of course have to empty the sheds. We eventually will have to empty the house. There's going to be lots to do. No doubt there'll be treasures to discover. So I hope you come along on the journey with me. Who knows where it's going to go? It could be a bit of fun. And we'll finish up this video now with a little bit of a walk around the farmyard. There's some more machinery, including a Massey Ferguson little tractor there, another bulk grain bin in there. There's going to be a lot of scrap metal from around the farmyard that has been handy over the years as Dad's been building things, but the neighbour's not going to want it, and you know, I'm not going to use it. The main tractor here, the Chamberlain, will sell at some stage. We're still using it to drag machinery around at this stage. And the old Chamberlain, it's a Countryman 6. I think Dad bought this brand new in 1960 something. And I believe we probably won't sell that one. I think my son Steve is going to inherit that from the farm. I'm not sure what he's going to do with it, but I think that was the deal. But we will sell the main tractor at some stage. And I was going to show you what a binder looks like. Well, it's not actually set up, so it might be a bit hard to imagine. If I can find some footage of one operating, I'll give you a look. So yeah, they're mainly built, I think they were built in around 1930s, 1940s, and they were designed to cut sheaves, which was an early way of harvesting crops, mainly oats, I think. And this one in the shed here is actually in really good condition. It's probably never had very much use at all. It doesn't look much at the moment because it's covered in clutter. We'll get this one out though at some stage and set it up so it looks nice, and we'll try and sell that one probably on eBay as well. So I'll wind this one up. It's been a bit more of a farm tour than anything, but it gives you an idea what we have ahead of us in this great cleanup. We haven't really looked in any of the sheds, and of course there's a lot of stuff in the farmhouse and the surrounding sheds. So we're going to have a big cleanup job over the years. We're going to find some interesting stuff, I'm sure. And as things progress, we will be selling more and more. At this stage, as I said, we're just going to clean up most of the machinery and the bigger items around the farm. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey. The episodes won't come along super fast. It just depends when I can get back here and when we have results to show you. But the series will progress, and eventually we'll get it all cleaned up. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.